Welcome back to RLCS Overtime. We just got done talking about North America, and now it's time for EU. I'm your host, Wave Punk. We got Finable Carpet. He's not going anywhere. He's staying right here the whole time.
I put my seatbelt on.
Where's the carpet? Found him. It's right here. And then over here, we got Gibbs, Lawler. They're still here, too.
Same
Not
spot.
much has changed in the last 2 minutes.
Nothing.
Nothing. But everything's changing over in Europe. All sorts of teams winning that we didn't expect to win. All sorts of teams losing that we didn't expect to lose. It was a crazy day. There was a possible 42 games. I think we got 38 of them. It was so long, but it was great Rocket League all the way around, and we can get started with the quarterfinals. First matchup was Gale Force versus Mocket. I expected Gale Force to take this one. Gibbs didn't, though, and Mocket ended up with the win.
This might have been the greatest day of Rocket League history, of just all these teams playing so well. And Mocket really showed up during the series, but Gale Force was so close. It came down in Game 5, almost a 5-minute overtime, and then the league play MVP K-Dop scoring that goal.
A lot of us went into this series thinking about, okay, Gale Force is starting to slow down a little bit, despite having a really good season. Mocket doing the complete opposite. Started slow and started getting better. Mocket didn't slow down at all. K-Dop and Fairy Peak really working well together. And the biggest one, Fairy Peak got involved. A lot of aggressive play up front opened up the field for this team.
I was mostly triggered because Gibbs has been pulling for Mock all season, and I kept saying, I don't see it, Gibbs. I don't know where it is. They haven't been doing it. And of course, today, of all days, Mocket performs better than almost every team throughout the entire day. They do so well.
Yeah, no, it was crazy how Mocket was a team that Gibbs was building up at the beginning, and then throughout the whole league, we're like, I don't know, we just don't see it. And then today of all days was the day they heated up, able to go the full distance. They end up being our European champions, but we'll get to that more later on. 6 games is what it took here for Mocket to get the win.
And it was just a heartbreaker for Gale Force. They tied the game with 25 seconds left in Game 6. And then just 12 seconds later, Fairy Peak scores to make it 2-1, and then they still get 2 more goals in during those 13 seconds to seal the deal. And Mocket moving on, and Pashi plus Violent Panda, they were in the grand finals of the last World Championships. They will not be there at all this time.
Yeah, a lot of our big names here missing out on land. Kronovi won't be there from G2, now Pashi as well. Such an interesting series here, but it was Mocket that moved on. Moving on to the other quarterfinals, Flipside versus Resonant. This is a rematch of the final game of league play where Resonant took it in 5 games. Flipside Tactics, though, after dropping many early on in the series, able to bounce back and get the win.
If you did not watch this series, go back and watch the Twitch VOD. It is hands down some of the best game we have ever seen. Resonant, a lot of people forget, they used to be known as Team Secrecy. They came in as the 3rd seed. A lot of us thought they were going to do a lot better, and just performance-wise haven't been there. They really showed why they got that level coming into this series.
And then Flipside, they need to set their alarm like 2 hours before these games or something. They always seem to start off so slow. They were down 3-1, and then they finally woke up. We see amazing plays from Cooks, and Greasy really carried them throughout this entire series. Right here, the double touch off the backboard to tie the game in game number 7. And then who other than, of course, Too Many Cooks. Overtime goal again from Cooks here. Just, he does it every single time. He's such a clutch player.
Just to reiterate how amazing this game was, I was casting this game, and my brain was putty the rest of the day. I actually did not know how to speak for the next 2 games that I'd casted. Just phenomenal play from both teams, and this is one of the few games where I can say, after watching it, that I watched every single player give every single ounce of energy they had into this game, all the way till the last second. Overtime, 1 minute 30 seconds, Game 7, and it ends with a Marquis pass to Cooks here. It couldn't have been better.
I want to point out also just the impact that it being a best of 7 had on this series. Were it to be a best of 5, Resonant would have won again. But flip side, the team that can endure longer than any team, able to pull it out in 7 games. This was kind of the storyline for Flipside in all of their series of the day.
They just love to do this to themselves. They always put their backs against the wall, but then they always perform. They're one of the clutchest teams there is, and they show it again today. There's nothing to be said about it. They just do it every single time. Eventually, it has to stop working, but I don't know.
I mean, it was scary, though, because during that series, they looked abysmal. Like you said, like woke up late or something. And then out of nowhere, you saw Cooks. He had like 5 or 4 unanswered goals or something ridiculous. And then from that point on, everybody else just fell into place. And then they looked like the flip side we know and love.
Now, talking about rosters, we have 2 teams now whose season are over, Resonant and Gale Force. Pesci, a person who is known for his roster swapping, and I can almost guarantee that he will be dropping somebody, be picking up, maybe just dropping the whole team. You never know with this guy because he wants to do everything it takes to win. So Gale Force, I think we can guarantee will have some roster changes. How do y'all feel about Resident?
I think they might stay together. Like at least Mets and Maga, they seem like a great duo. I assume a lot will probably be back. But then on the other side with Gale Force, I see Chaussette being that third man out because of course Pesci and Violent Panda now 2 seasons together, and Chaussette looked a little shaky on defense throughout most of like week 5 and then playoffs as well. So I could see that being a swap that's made there. But I think both teams, at least 2 members, will return.
I think a lot of Chaussette's weariness, like that was his RLCS debut, right? Was it?
No,
it wasn't.
He's been improving every season on teams.
I think just in general, as far as wow, I actually should have known that. Just in general, seeing it was really the high pressure games that he kind of fell off.
Sure.
Just understanding like, oh, I might make it a land. You know, really seeing how close he was to making it. He's a player that generally was quiet up until then. We saw a couple of good moments throughout the seasons. Now that I'm remembering things.
Yeah, no, he's stepped up, and he's always been playing from behind. He's always had a team that's kind of in the lower end that's trying to break into the top. Gale Force was the last undefeated team in Europe. They were on the top for the longest time, and that sort of pressure, it takes a different sort of mindset to be able to stay at the top and play from the top, you know. And it could easily have been the situation with Chaussette that he just did not have that mental game.
And plus, though, Gale Force, they didn't play anyone that tough their first 2 to 3 weeks of the season. Their real test was week number 5 against 2 4-1s, and then they didn't perform. So we could see that coming into playoffs where Maka went 2-0 in week number 5.
Yeah. Now this gave us our top 4 teams for Europe as we had our semifinals lined up. Northern Gaming, the number 1 seed from the regular season, went up against Maka after their defeat of Gale Force for our first semifinal match. Northern Gaming struggling here a bit as Mockets just in the form of their lives in the series were able to take the win.
I mean, for Mocket, this entire day was stacked against them. They had to come up against 2 really difficult teams. But the perseverance for this player in KDOP, he won MVP this season. He showed it yet again here, all over the field, pass plays, shots, whatever he needed to do to put his team on his back and secure victory. To get the win and move into not only land, but then also secure a spot for the next season, like, unbelievable. KDOP, like, is regarded, in my opinion, as probably, if not one of the best players, if he is not the best player in the world right now.
And this series just went back and forth. Game 1 to Maka, Game 2 to Northern, just back and forth the entire way. And Maka got outscored this year. It was 14-9, but there was 5 1-goal games. Maka won 4 of them. So hats off to them. They show up when it matters most. They had 2 blowout losses, but again, Northern Gaming only winning 3. So Maka moves on, and this was a really close set. And I thought it would be, but I thought Northern Gaming would just squeak it out. And it was a big set for them because no Maestro at land. They wanted the best possible seed, and now they're battling out for a 3rd place spot.
This game was just so big for Northern Gaming, especially knowing that they're not going to land with their full roster. This was a chance for them to at least secure a Season 4 spot, at least ensure that they will be able to have more opportunities to prove themselves and not being able to come on top. But as Gibbs said, just back and forth, just trading with wins all the way to the very end. I mean, just building up pressure every single game. No one really had the full lead, and Northern Gaming just caved under pressure.
I mean, the crazy thing, too, in this game is Mystic doesn't get too much credit. He's more of a support player. He just fills in the role. He literally, we want to talk about, like, how we saw in that Flipside Resonant game, everybody giving every ounce of their power. Mystic would literally attack from any side of the field. Doesn't matter where he was. He would go head in, get a 50-50, fall back, get boost, and then go right back in again. He did it like 8 times in a row, and I'm just like, I guess it works. Like, but you want to talk about doing everything you can to win? Mystic, shoutouts to him.
Yep, Mocket doing well to qualify for the finals there. The other match, the other side of the bracket, the semifinals of the Leftovers versus Flipside. We saw this match back in week number 1, and it was a thriller. This match didn't disappoint either, but this time, Flipside gets its revenge on the Leftovers.
And Flipside again, though, set your alarm clocks or something to wake up. The first 2 games go to the Leftovers, and it was a blowout in game 2, 6-1, and then finally Flipside woke up and started winning some games here. 2
teams that actually do better when they've lost the first 2 games. So it really came down to who won the first 2. They were probably going to lose the series. I think a joke got made during the broadcast. The Leftovers won the first 2, which means they were probably going to lose just because they generally need that fire. At least that's what they've shown all season. But Flipside Tactics, as Gibb said, they took a while to ramp up, but when they are up there, they're so tough to beat.
And then plus they had 7 games to do it. But when we go to the World Championships, most of it is just best of 5. So they're going to have to wake up a little bit sooner here. But flip side, once again, being down by 2 games during the series, coming all the way back and winning 4 in a row here. They won 3 in a row to close out their first series. They move on to the finals. Once again, they will be at least a top 2 seed for all 3 seasons now.
Yeah, we've seen. Do you remember the flip side? Just one series before this was 1 game away from being eliminated from season 3 and from not playing at the LAN. And then here we see them qualifying for top 2, auto qualifying for season 4, and playing for the championship for a 2nd season in a row.
And it's flip side, just doing flip side things. They love to lose and then battle all the way back. They just got to figure out a way to trick their minds into thinking game 1 they're down 2-0 already.
I mean, it just goes to show how Rocket League is really that dedicated. Like, if you don't put the time and effort into it, it can be make or break at any moment. Like, these players talk about having to practice so many hours every single week and how crucial it is. You look at how many players are from the original start vets going back to LAN, as well as players that have been to the previous LANs going back, and it's actually pretty few now. There's only like 4 or 5 from each region that actually get to go back and compete. It's cutthroat out there, man.
It is so difficult. The advantage of being a veteran going to LAN is big, but it doesn't really help for the 8 weeks of online play that it takes to qualify and to get there, and you have to play it every single step along the way. And you see here, Leftovers and Flipside, they're both going to LAN, but Flipside, just the veteran players able to push through, and now they're in the finals again. The 3rd place match between Leftovers and Northern Gaming. Northern decided to play their sub Turbo Pulsa, who will be their part of their roster for LAN play, but you can see here, because Northern loses, they will have to face off against the OCE number 2 seed.
And honestly, I thought that was a wrong move, because we were talking about you do not want to play the number 1 team from North America. They bring in Turbo to get some practice, but honestly, like, a live event is so much different than online, so I don't know how much this practice helped. Also, he wasn't sure he was going to play, so he didn't have a lot of practice throughout the entire day.
Not only that, but like, you want to make sure you secure, like, you don't want to go against Energy first. Not only that too, but like, Turbo does have LAN experience. It's not like he's going in completely cold turkey. He's been to a LAN before and competed at a LAN. Didn't go that well, but he was still there.
Certainly was, but 3rd place, Leftovers, after dropping to Flipside, will secure the number 3 seed moving into the LAN. Now, for our grand finals of Europe, it was Mocket versus Flipside. Flipside, the defending European champions, as well as the defending world champions here, facing it off against Mocket. It went 6 games, but Mocket able to just take it to the regional champions and take that title from them. Mocket as your European champions.
Plus, we talked to Marky a lot. In all of his interviews, we've seen him say, we have a hard time beating Mocket. They did beat him during the regular season with a KDOP DC, so it was really 2-2, and then that KDOP DC kind of threw it over the top for Flipside. So somehow Flipside is going to have to figure this out for the World Championships.
I find it really interesting that you say that in general. Sometimes when you look at some teams, they just get countered by a certain style of play. They really struggle. Like, some teams just struggle with fast teams. Some teams really struggle with passing games. And you look at here, I mean, honestly, up until this day, I really hadn't seen Mocket impress me in a huge way. I know they were good, and I know individually these are some of the best players. But throughout league play, I never pegged them to be regional championships. But I guess I should have listened to Gibbs.
Yeah, I mean,
for some weird reason.
Team history is really crazy with these teams. So obviously these guys played again in week 1. Went in Flipside's favor when they looked really hot. But before that, it had been like 2 months that they would last beaten this Mocket squad. There's just something about these playstyles mixing up. And then Gibbs said if they don't figure it out before LAN, this could be scary for them, although they do probably want to drop down to that lower bracket anyway. So
I'm going to be honest. I felt like Flipside did not look in the form that we usually see them in. They were still missing they were making so many mistakes, and it feels weird to say this, but I still don't really believe in Mocket. I'm like, yes, they're the champions. Yes, they managed to win, but I don't think Flipside was playing against them the way they should.
I don't know if there is a European team this time coming in really, really strong. I think Mocket is that best choice, and that's why I keep saying that they will win the LAN. Because Flipside, we haven't seen Season 2 Flipside at all this season.
Right.
They haven't dominated at all. So Season 3 Flipside, who knows? They have said they get nerves on stage, at least for their first round, so you never know there. Europe is still a better region than North America, so that's why I think Mocket will prevail. But Northern Gaming, probably the best team in Europe right now. They won't have their 3
They won't
starters.
have Maestro, yeah. So it's like that was kind of the easy answer, the easy go-to of like who would win. I was gonna be Northern, but Maestro's not there, and it's so hard to like look at the Leftovers and be like, yes, they can play up to Flipside's level, but It's their first time at the LAN. It's so hard to look at that team and be like, oh yeah, they're going to come out and just the rookies are going to win, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people love to talk about, oh, North America's better, oh, Europe's better. And, you know, people are saying, well, Europe has more depth, right? But a lot of times, what does that mean? When you see teams that like first seed and sixth seed just going toe to toe and being tied, does that mean like no teams have true consistency where everyone's that close? And as we see, the final day was absolutely amazing. Every single series going to either 6 or 7 games. But as Wave said, there were some teams that we see that should be playing prime constantly, and they really weren't. Flipside taking so long to ramp in. Team like the Leftovers, who I really want to have faith in, and they're a team that I think will do pretty well. But even they have their off weeks where they lose to teams they shouldn't. And as much as you want to talk about a dominant region, I think they have just as many flaws.
Yeah, for sure. And if we look at the bracket, just as a recap for how the championships went, I know everybody's favorite series was Flipside versus Resonant. What was you guys' second favorite series?
I would have to say Mocket versus Northern. It was a rematch, kind of, from the grand finals where the only time we've ever seen a 7-game series in a live event went to Mocket as well. Of course, this is a brand new roster, but Northern Gaming just can't find that Game 7 clutchness. So that really hurt Northern there. Then Maestro bailing out, so they get the 4th place spot.
I mean, for me, I just enjoy the Leftovers in general. Like, their story as well, like how they came together and everything. Plus the fact that, like, just Siki himself is now going to every single LAN with completely new rosters each time. And the fact that you can't count them out. No matter what happens, even if they drop the first couple of games, it doesn't matter. Just keep your eyes open.
Yep.
They may come back and reverse sweep you.
Yep. You can look at the prize pool, what these players were playing for. It's Mocket that goes home with the $10,000. Flipside gets $6,500, and then it pans out here. Again, the regional championship title, so important. Such a nice bragging right and cool storyline. Mocket gets it here for season 3.
And then, of course, the juicy bracket will have to face probably a number 4 seed from North America. So that's nice for them during their first round matchup. And they're looking really strong. I don't know. I think they can win it.
We'll see if they can pull it off. But before we talk about the championship, before we talk about the LAN, let's look at the top 5 plays from Europe. Over to Leaf at the Telestrator.
Yes, Wave, let's do that. I've been waiting here for a while. We just talked about North America before. Now we went over Europe, and now it's time to look at the top plays. Europe certainly didn't let us down. They also had 5. How convenient. And bringing us off at the beginning of that one is Devo. Now, Devo has been legendary throughout this entire, season. And while I may have wasted my creativity on the top 5 North American plays, Devo certainly hasn't wasted any of his signature double taps throughout the season. It goes to show how great players are getting that this insane shot is going to be followed by 4 other plays. And 4, well, yeah, logically would be the next number. Coming in there is Cooksier. Cooksier's a legend. You guys all know the name. He's a household one when it comes to Rocket League. And finally, he decided to play with 2 hands halfway through the day. But this was one of the one-handed shots, as he needed a protractor for the other. With the help of the I've taken 100 million energy drinks today, Greasy Meister, he stays in the play to nab his team a 0-second goal for overtime. We say a lot of clutch moments for Flipside. This was just one of them. Number 3 is going to be Siki. There's a reason Siki has 2 eyes at the end of his name. Well, it's simply that he's just extra sick. That ball living on the edge longer than Aerosmith could ever dream of. And with a little deja vu, Siki remembered the wall shot he had from an opponent's end just a couple weeks ago. And of course, he tries again with success. Originally calling that the Sad Junior, I think I'm going to switch it called the Siki. Now, we alluded to it before, and now's the time to make the reveal, but Greasy Meister nabbing that second spot. Just when I thought they were going to go to overtime, Greasy goes into overdrive. An original save here, he gets a smooth landing, and it's so important to pay attention to that because without that smooth landing, he wouldn't have made this second save. Absolutely incredibly clutch. Greasy Meister grabbing your second spot, well, and of course, your number 1 spot. Greasy stole my voice and my heart during this series. I'm getting goosebumps just even thinking about this again. With 1 minute left, he gets an insane double tap pass to Markey, who ties them up in game number 7, resulting in an eventual win and land spot for his team. Now, you can go back and just watch this series, which I highly recommend, or you can go back and watch all of the plays that happened this weekend on the Twitch VODs. Do not want to miss anything. Overtime's great. Watching the whole thing is an experience in itself. With that, we're going to go back over to Wavepunk.
Thanks so much, Leaf. Can he just do that all the time? That's way more fun than us just sitting here watching the plays. When he knows it, and the Greasy Meister was crazy. Was so crazy today.
I don't. It was that entire game, I got it. Me and Leaf were sitting there, and we were looking at each other. Like, I'm glad that the camera's never on us, because honestly, I do some really weird things when I'm not on camera. And I'm getting.
I think Leaf beat you to that this week.
That's true. That's true. But just in general, with a minute left, nearly watching your world champions get knocked out, and then seeing a player, Greasy Meister, who when he originally got put on that roster, we were all like a little worried, because how do you live up to Mike Rules, right? At the time, Mike Rules was so good. And to watch him pull that off just to make sure his team makes it to land, it was just one of the most amazing moments I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, puts his team on his back and carries them all the way to land. We can look at the bracket for how it will pan out at the World Championships at the Wiltern. It might look big right now. There you go. Look at that. There's where we're going to be starting here. Denial will be facing off against the #1 OCE seed, Northern Gaming against the #2 OCE seed, and then the matches we have right now, Flipside versus Selfless, Atelier versus the Leftovers.
And we're saying here again that North America probably a bit weaker, but Europe has a lot of flaws, so you just never know. Plus, home turf once again for North America. So we'll see if NRG can beat Northern Gaming is the most likely matchup that they will get for their first round game, but that's not easy.
Absolutely crucial in this off time as well. They got about 3 weeks before they get to these land spots. #1, obviously, figure out the kinks of what's going on. What made you guys get to this place in the first place? Exploit it. #2, do some homework on these teams. Look across the pond, find out why they're as good as they are, and study it. Please, come prepared. Put some really good games on for us. I know you guys won't disappoint.
Yeah, speaking of looking across the pond, we got 2 ponds to look across. And now OCE is here for the first time on the main stage of Rocket League of RLCS, and I am excited to find out what they are bringing to the table. When we come back, we're going to talk to Yummy Cheese Man about the players in OCE. Who is coming? Who does he think is going to make it? Who's going to fill out those #1 and #2 spots? We'll find out after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.